market back then. The AR-10 was kind of just getting into the civilian market for the most part. I looked around. Everybody had a bunch of different proprietary mags, and again, you didn't really have too many options of what you wanted to go with. There was, of course, the M14. There was a few Cetmes, but those were all imported parts kits. There was also G3. All of those weapons were like thousands of dollars besides the Cetmes and all of those things. And I didn't really want one of those. What I decided upon was the FAL. And one of the big considerations was that the magazines were dirt cheap back then. You could pick up FAL mags used, $5, literally in just bins. They had them just tons of them just sitting there for $5 at gun shows. So I picked up magazines that were really cheap back then. And this weapon was known as the right arm of the free world. We're not going to get into the history of the fighting with it and where it was used and all that, but it is a reliable and battle-tested instrument. So I picked up a DSA 19-inch metric pattern SA58, and the FAL is a 20-round box magazine fed short stroke gas piston design, and it just works. I mean, it is a tank. It has a few good features going about it and some that are not so great. So let's take a look. It has a adjustable gas system, which can be adjusted on the fly. You can use it for adverse conditions, or you can use it to make the ammo kind of just spit out the side very gently, or the brass at least spit out the side very gently. What I did find out is that these little vents are the exact size of M-LOK adapters. And so I fed through a couple of M-LOK adapters, and not wanting to add too much weight, took a small plastic section of pick rail and mounted streamlight. The streamlight can be activated right-handed or not so easily left-handed. So that was one of the considerations with me putting the rail where it is and the light. This thing is a beast. It weighs 11.8 pounds as configured. That's with a full magazine, the light and 2 batteries, and the top mounted dust cover. But I'm not some kind of sniper guy. Again, when I looked for guns at 308, size and range, AR-10 was more accurate. You could accurize a M14 or M21 to be as accurate or more accurate, but this thing with a scope on top was 2 MOA to 4 MOA with surplus ammo, and that was good enough for me because I'm not some kind of sniper that's going to be shooting out far. It would still fill the role of a designated marksman if you put a decent bit of glass on top. You're just not going to get sub-MOA accuracy for the most part. And that comes down to the tilting bolt, in my opinion, which is one of the drawbacks. But it does have a straight line recoil for the most part, and it makes it a soft shooter. Out of most of the 308 rifles, this has been considered probably one of the softest shooting ones. And me being a small guy, I wanted something that wasn't going to kick the crap out of me. So this gun is beautiful. Another good thing about it, the magazines. They do rock and lock for insertion, but because this entire side is cut away, don't know how well that's picked up on the camera, these lock in much easier than an AK mag. I mean, it's almost impossible to miss the rock and lock. You just throw that sucker up, and as long as you're hitting the top of the bolt, when you pull down, it's going to go in. I don't like the mag release on this one. I will eventually change it, but it's been good enough. I can reach it with my middle finger to drop a mag, and it will drop free. Oh, and it is a 308 7.62 by 51 weapon. So the charging handle is non-reciprocating, and on this side, so a drawback is there is no way to close the bolt if you have a partial. you have to just run that sucker again, or you have to pull it back far enough and hope that it's going to actually feed and get into the chamber that way. This firearm does break down into half. There's a pin here that you unscrew. And once you unscrew that, there's a latch at the bottom that you push up, and it breaks in half for basic servicing. Well, we got full mag in it, so that's not going to happen. Otherwise, I'm going to load around, but it breaks in half. Let me get this thing out of here. And you can pull the bolt out, and bolt carrier, and it is a chunk of steel. This thing is practically bulletproof. Make sure your bolt's all the way forward when you try to put it in there, otherwise it's not going to go in. But this firearm is good to go. This one has a 19-inch barrel. It is a medium contour barrel. I will eventually, aren't debating the idea of cutting this barrel down to somewhere between 14, 16 and adding a flash hider. I just can't bring myself to do it. But it would also drop some of the weight so that I could maybe get an optic up here. And I'm not sure what optic I'm going to go with. Now, speaking of sighting systems, this sighting system sucks. It sucks balls. So I haven't really been shooting this one too much because I'm waiting on a DSA Para rear sight, because I don't know how well the camera's going to pick this up, but look at that pinhole of a sight. Like, how the hell are you supposed to use that in low lighting conditions? That is trash. So I'm going to get rid of this thing, and then I'll get it out to the range and do some more shooting with it. It's been a while since I shot this monster. But as far as shooting, it is a soft shooter. I'm, again, a little guy, so 308 will be kicking my ass all over the place. But this firearm also has a thumb safety. I don't much care for the thumb safety. It's kind of hard to operate at times. It does give my thumb a little bit of soreness if I try to use it too quickly or too often, depending on where that little nub pushes. But it is safe and semi. It is a beautiful weapon. If this was a full auto, that little nub wouldn't be there, and this would spin all the way down to vertical, basically. But love this firearm. It also, for an older design, came with a last round bolt hold open. So this little piece on this side is the last round bolt hold open. So when it, I don't know how I'm going to do this left-handed, but when it cocks, the magazine will hold the bolt open, and you can either run the charging handle, or you can simply press down on this tab and it will close the bolt for you. Once you lock a mag in, hit it with your thumb, you're good to go again. The trigger on this firearm is not good. It is it's not really creepy, but it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It has a little bit of creep, but it's just not, it's not a match grade trigger, we'll put it that way. It has it's okay, it's serviceable, but it's not like a trigger that I really love. The AR-15 basic trigger is better than this one. It has a much crisper break. You kind of can't tell where this one's going to break. That's the way I want to put it. But overall, this is one of my favorite firearms to shoot. It's just a beautifully designed weapon, especially for being as old as it is. Has pretty much all of the modern features, like I said. Last round bolt hold open, the ability to break it in half. It did start using polymers, and I mean, it is just a monster. The last thing maybe is that grip angle. Some people don't like this kind of saw-like grip. I love it. It doesn't bother me at all. It feels good in the hand. Biggest drawback to this thing is that it is 11.8 pounds fully loaded, and that is without an optic, but with a flashlight, so we'll get that in there. The front sight post is nothing to smile about. It's just a basic little nub of a front sight post. Sight adjustments are done through these two screws on this model, but the Para model that I'm getting will have an AR-15 dual adapter to where you can adjust it with the windage knob, and will be a lot better and easier to use. But for this one, you'd have to drift it over by turning these two screws on either side, one way or the other, and that'll drift your sight over some. But for a short stroke piston, this thing is just a little monster. I love it, and it will get the job done in a zombie apocalypse. But I'm not grabbing this thing if I gotta go somewhere, because I'm not gonna be able to carry as many rounds. 20 round magazine, 11.8 pounds. It's a beast. This is gonna be a setup somewhere and sit if I had to type weapon. Last thing about it is, because it's so large, this firearm will not really fit into a backpack. So I kind of have to be creative when I want to get this out if I'm trying to be a little bit less conspicuous and more under the radar. But this is my FAL. Don't really have a name for it. I'll have to think of one. But this is my baby. And you guys have a good one. Peace.